It's Gerry from Rythmia Life Advancement Center in beautiful downtown Guanacaste, Costa Rica. Rythmia is a unique place in so much as it's the #1 rated resort in the world on TripAdvisor. We do this thing called soul merging where we put people back together. As a result of this, in 2019, 95.12% of the people that came here had this merger. Since the beginning of time, 93.71%. So that's 937 out of every 1,000 people have had this miraculous event in their life. And the best part of that is 97.55% of them 6 months later say not only that it's stuck, but this was the week that changed their whole life. So no matter what you're doing after this, after we're free and running around, please come to Rythmia. It makes such a difference in people's lives. It's really an amazing place. From all accounts, it's amazing. It's just an amazing place. And the experience, I don't care what you do with your money. If you do this, it will change the rest of your life, the absolute rest of your life. Yeah, so last week, let's talk about some things. Last week, I talked about a return to the truth and what that would look like. And I got a lot of emails over people who were kind of confused because I made some predictions. I said after the end of COVID, this is going to be like the Roaring 20s. And what do I mean by that? Well, it's very interesting how time is stacking up. A century ago, the Spanish flu ended in 1920, right? And so it started in 1918. So it set up this huge economic expansion, because when you pin people up and then release them, they tend to make up for the money they didn't spend, the good times they didn't have, the things that they didn't do, and they cram that into the future and it creates a bubble. That's all that means. So I'm going to tell you, as sure as I'm sitting here, it will be like the Roaring 20s. That's what this will be known as again. And it's starting out the same way and it's building up to the same thing. In that though, I asked for this. We cannot control people, but some of us that wake up and not woke is a different thing. That's a prescription of things that you believe in. That's not this. This is awareness. A group of us who want to be aware, who really want to be aware, who want to be in truth, can change the course of everything going forward. That's my greatest hope, that this, and that's why I don't want to get confused. That's my greatest hope of what's coming. And I believe that the good that's coming is amazing, because unlike in the 1920s, in the 2020s, plant medicine has taken over again. Psychedelics have taken over again. Spiritualism has taken over again. This is going to be a much different Roaring 20s than the last one. And I can assure you that. And people are turning back to their family, back to their community, back to their friends, back to their neighborhoods. This is what's important. So let's talk about this. The part that confused people was when I started talking about how to look at things in truth. And this is not a spiritual talk, this one. This is a real factual earth talk. Okay, so the thing that I keep saying is that the coronavirus is over. It is over. It is. And in most of the country, I just spoke to my friend and partner, Chris from Florida. He's been my partner for 20 some years. And he said, Florida's like it's never happened. California just went into lockdown again, but really what's going on? What is the truth? Well, here's the truth, and you don't need too much statistical training to understand it. Go to the world meters and look at the United States, and what you'll see that the infection rate is going like this, or the opposite for you guys looking this way. The infection rate is going like this in the graph, and then the death rate is going like this. You see those things when they diverge, when they split from each other, that's the end. At that point, that's over. So when those things cross, so what I'm going to tell you is this, is that just 2 months ago, 2,700 people was the high that died in a day. We're averaging 700, and the infections have more than doubled, in some cases tripled. So what's going on? Now, I'm in a very fortunate position. One of my partners in another company is a twice Nobel Peace Prize nominated doctor with a background in infectious disease. And he told me there are 3 things happening that happens as viruses mature. Number 1, the more people you test, the more healthy people are going to be in that test. All the sick people are getting tested up front. Oh, I'm sick, I'm at the hospital, I'm getting tested. As the testing widens, more healthy people are getting tested, and that makes the mortality rate the death rate much less, right? The second thing, unfortunately, the virus attacks the weak first. So when the virus attacks the weak, the first are the weakest, and those people tend to have the abnormally high fatality rate, abnormally high. So those deaths all happen in the front. Now the third thing, and the most interesting thing, is that he explained to me that as this is not of all viruses, but as most viruses go, they tend to mutate and change hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times. And each time it changes, it gets more infectious, meaning easier to catch and less deadly. So by the time, and this is the big gamble, the government, in my opinion, and it's not a conspiracy thing, it's just an opinion, that, and this is where I get to truth. What I just told you is absolute fact. Infections are going up, the death rate's coming down, that's all fact. Why? I gave you 3 things that are an opinion of a very, very, very smart guy in that field, right? My opinion is, and this is just an opinion, and it's not that outlandish, it's an opinion that our government would love to see us get vaccinated, and our government would love to see us get chipped. I believe that. And the greatest explanation for this is put a code in the vaccination so that we make sure that your vaccination is authentic. That's a very easy front door into that. Whether that's true or not, I have no idea. But that's my feeling. So I'm going to separate feelings from truth. The first set that I told you was the truth. The second set was my friend's opinion, and the last was my opinion. People have different opinions. You have to hold them true to you, right? They don't have to be true to you. All you have to do is recognize and appreciate people's opinions. And then you can select what you believe to be true. That's it. That's this whole idea of returning to truth. So let's just take a look at some of the things too about woke and cancel culture, right? This is crazy, crazy. You couldn't make this up if you wanted to. So, because I got these emails and people wanted to know, how do you look at things to ascertain if they're truthful? Well, here's the thing. Most of it is so incredibly overly obvious that you can't even, it's unfathomably obvious, most things. So all you have to do is peel the hood back. So the other day, I saw this thing and it said that, and by the way, I'm going to talk about pedophilia. Is pedophilia real? Absolutely. Is it a huge problem? Absolutely. Is it a fate worse than death for a lot of people? Absolutely. I was sexually abused as a very young person. It's the worst thing in the world, firsthand, right? So yes, that's out there. Yes, it's happening. Is it happening in Hollywood? I don't know. I would think that would be a good place to look myself. I don't know. But I came across this article, and what the article said was that a public company that I happen to know because I shopped at their store, Wayfair, was involved in pedophilia. And then they showed how on their website they had cabinets that were selling for much more money than they should have been. And there was this elaborate scheme of how you got to participate in pedophilia out of this cabinet. Like there's a name encoded in it and all these things. Now, in order for this to be true, you just sit down and think. This is how ridiculous some of this is. In order for this to be true, the CEO of that company, and by the way, the public stock value of that company is $21 billion. They do business every year of $9.3 billion in business. Well, he would have had to sit down and said, hey, look at all this money and success is killing me. Let me get into the pedophilia business. Do you understand that? You really get this, you understand that. And then what he would have to do is he would have to go to his board of directors, because there's obviously something, you can't do this. The company is over 1,800 employees. You can't do this on your own. You need people to help you. So the first thing you have to do is be involved with your board, and you have to tell your board, hey, look it, I want to do this thing. Now this is who's on that board. The past CFO of TripAdvisor. The past CFO of TripAdvisor. And then one of the people that I'm amazed by, Andrea Young, is on this board. The rest of the other, there's 7 people. The other 5 guys are all high-end financial guys, like really, really, really smart, good guys, right? So you would have to get them to say, okay, let's get into the pedophile business. And then you'd have to go to your auditors. Now, the auditors for this company are Grant Thornton, the 7th largest auditing firm in the world. And you would have to go to them, because when they see these wild numbers of things being sold at this price, it's going to call attention. Anybody, all the CPAs, of which I bet there are maybe 300 people in accounting at this company, this is going to pass through everybody and nobody's going to catch it, or they all have to be in on it. So I'm going to go with they all have to be in on it. Everybody has to be in. Now you have to get Grant Thornton, the 7th largest accounting company in the free world, to agree to we're going to be in this business. Now here's where it gets really crazy. If you do a little bit of work and you take a look at Andrea Young, and you see who she is as a person. Well, number one, she was the past CEO of Avon, the company, Avon. But that wasn't her big thing. Her big thing was that she was she was the CEO of Grameen. And what Grameen was from Muhammad Yunus's company. And Muhammad Yunus is the head of the guy that was instrumental in starting microlending, which was loans to women, little loans to women and all these. But anyway, this lady was the CEO of a non-profit company loaning money to women, and she's on the board of directors of Wayfair. Please, here's even more about her. With this is just 2 clicks. I knew of her from before because she won all kinds of awards dedicated to helping underprivileged women and women's health. This lady is a beacon. Now imagine if you're her brother, her children, her mom, or her dad, and you read these things on the internet, and this lady worked her whole life. She's 61 years old. She worked her whole life to not only be a 1 in a million manager, to manage these big companies. She worked her whole life at helping people. And now with the stroke with a keystroke, you can defame someone's character and get half the country to believe that this is true. This is the kind of stuff I'm talking about. This is about being aware. This is what being aware is, to look at things. And I believe this to be true. I believe that the trouble that we're having as a people is something happened with the education system 20, 25 years ago. Because if you can count and you were taught some class on logic or deductive reasoning, you look at this and go, the probabilities are about 1 in 55 million. I have a better chance of getting struck by lightning twice today than I do of this this company being involved in pedophilia. I'm telling you. Now it's different if you say Dave Smith is involved in pedophilia. That's a different thing. And not that Dave Smith is not the person Dave Smith. It's a John, it's a John Q. Public is involved in pedophilia. That's a different thing because that's the act of one man and anybody can do one thing. But even then, you have to go to logic. You have to go to math. When you're looking at the coronavirus, how can you not be a sheep in this, right? And I want to tell you what I mean by not be a sheep. I don't mean to not do what they say. I wear a mask. The reason I wear a mask is on the chance that it stops one droplet from coming on me, I'm down with it. And if it makes someone else feel a little bit better and it doesn't cost me anything, the masks are cheap and it doesn't mean anything to me. I do it for other people. But about being a sheep, what I mean by that is this. If the numbers are not stacking up to you, then you have to sit there and say, hey, maybe this is at face value and maybe there's a little bit more to it. Maybe there is. But until I can read math, until I can look at it and say, well, wait, there's a 500-pound pink elephant wearing a neon crown in the room and nobody's talking about her. What do I mean by that? Well, this is the greatest piece of news over the past 5 weeks has been the rollover of the death rate. The rollover of the death rate. The death rate is going away and nobody is talking about it. Nobody is talking about it. So what happens if somebody is trying to do, and I don't know, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, like everybody got together and they're trying to do this. That's not how I look at it. I'm an opportunity theorist. And if Big Pharma sees an opportunity to sell a huge vaccination to the world, whoever gets that one is rich for the next 10,000 lifetimes. So I try to follow the money and see what makes sense about that, right? They're rich for the next 10,000 lifetimes, right? So you put two and two together and you see this death rate rolling over and nobody's talking about it yet. That's what's interesting. That's what piques my interest. Why? But if I wasn't paying attention to the graphs and I was just listening to the TV and the news that I get that confirms my bias, I think, oh my God, it's the end of the world because the infection rate's going out of the thing. So if they were, and if Big Pharma and the lobbies and all that were trying to get us to do this infection, the next thing that I would say, because you can't, math itself has no opinion. The numbers don't have an opinion. They just are. So if my narrative is going away, in other words, if it's looking just like a flu all of a sudden, which it can be going that way. It started out as something else and it's going towards something else. If it's 2 deaths out of every 1,000, which I think it is, between 2 and 4 out of every 1,000, which is 0.2 to 0.4 of a point. That's where I think it's going. And the death rate is completely rolling over, but I want you to get vaccinated. Now I have to come up with a news story. Don't be afraid of death, be afraid of something else. So now let's take a look at what else we can propagate into the virus. Oh, you'll do this or you'll do that. Just be aware. So what is different about what I'm talking about today? Well, the thing is this, the math doesn't lie. And within a short time, everything is going to be behind us. All of this. And when I mean short, I mean super short. And as a people now, we're pointing fingers at everybody instead of taking a look at ourselves. So what I'm going to ask you to do is to be honest with yourself and then be honest with every piece of information that comes through you. Because after the invention of MySpace, everybody became a billboard. So before MySpace, right, before social media, you had your sphere of influence. You could speak to your mom, your friends, your auntie, your this, your that. But now you're a billboard. So be careful what you post. Be careful that you're not helping propagate a lie. Be careful that you're not creating division. And I mean, be very careful that you're not creating division. Don't be creating division, because now you're not on the side of light. Division is a darker color and a lower vibration. You're dividing, you're breaking people up. What we're trying to do is to unite. And how can you unite? You can't unite by saying, I'm a Republican and I believe everything that the Republicans say no matter what, and da da da. You have to take a look at, if you can't say, I'm a Democrat and I believe everything the Democrats say and I stand for everything they say and I'm voting the ticket. You can't do that. You have to, a group of us has to look at everything that's going on and say, this is, and first get to conditions precedent. What does that mean? What is conditions precedent? That means what is going on in this moment? What is really going on? Well, if we were talking about coronavirus, we'd be saying infection rates going up and death rates going down. Once we can agree on that as a group, we can move forward. Until we agree on that, we got nothing, right? So the same thing with each major issue. I don't mean the micro issues. I mean the major issues of a campaign, about health care, about welfare, about how to properly police. The big things, portions of each thing are right. And what we have to do as a people is voice that we're not going to take the whole menu. We want something different. Something has to change. The only way that we can do that is to be honest with ourselves, because as within goes without, right? As what's in comes what's out. So if we're honest with ourselves, then we can look at all these different situations without bias, without bias. And when we can do that, and that's really hard to do, because you know what? It may fly in absolute conflict to what you really believe. It might fly in absolute conflict to what you really believe. And that is the truth. So you have to be a big boy, or you have to be a big girl. You have to sit there and say, you know what? I thought this way my whole life and I was fucking wrong. I was wrong. And if you can sit there and take a look at things like that and become sovereign and become independent, that's where truth is. And that starts inside, not outside. That starts inside, not outside. So I want to tell you, this week, if we can do something as a group, and please share this if you think somebody can benefit from it, or if you want to be a part of spreading truth. But remember this week, you are a billboard. You, ever since Mark Zuckerberg, you are now an advertising beacon. Everything you say is either in support of unity or division. If you read through, every word you say is either dividing or unifying. So be very, very, very careful, because I believe, I really do believe this, I believe, and the thing was, I have been in plant journeys where, on Iboga, where not happened to me, but happened to someone in a room, the moon said, pull up your Facebook, and they pulled up his Facebook in his journey. And every word that he put that was a lie or that was harmful to someone, they let him know. And that's not how to be. And I'll never forget that journey, because I was listening to the guy. It was a guy who had a defense company. But I listened to the whole thing and I thought, holy shit. So what I'm telling you, there's karma. There really is real world karma if you don't change. Karma happens if you don't learn the lesson. But please don't be walking out there creating division, participating in a lie, hurting people that are innocent. This is not what this thing is about. So let's go inside this week. Let's do our homework this week. Let's get ready for the Roaring 20s, because they are coming. I'm telling you, they're coming. And what I mean, let's get ready for the Roaring 20s, I don't mean let's get all excited because we're going to have a party, but let's get excited because we're going to change the world. Let's do that. Until next week, God love you, God keep you, God hold you. Stay in truth with yourself and with all people. Peace.